Welcome to the online Early Response Team or ERT recertification training. This course is designed to refresh your memory about the key points taught in your ERT basic class. The entire process should take less than an hour to complete. At the end of this video, you will be directed to take a post-test of the material covered. This isn't a pass-fail exam, but rather a tool to help to reinforce the key points of the training. There is, however, one exam question that you will be required to answer correctly, and you will be prompted to pay attention at the proper time, so stay alert. Here is a quick look at the agenda and what we will be covering in this course. The course material should follow the ERT manual that you were asked to download prior to starting. If you haven't done so, I encourage you to download and print it now before continuing. Not only will it be referred to during this presentation and may be helpful in getting through the questions, but it is also a useful reference when you deploy as an ERT member. In addition to the ERT manual, the download includes a few other documents that you will need. There is a forms package that we will refer to later in this course. These forms will also be helpful when you deploy. Note that on this and subsequent slides there are a number or series of numbers in the lower left-hand corner. These correspond to the page number in the ERT manual for easy reference.
We will begin on page 1 and discuss our mission as ERTs, which is to provide a caring Christian presence in the aftermath of a disaster. It's about people, not tasks. Note that we are reminded in the third paragraph of page 1 that ERTs are trained primarily to respond within their own conference. We do not need an invitation to respond in our own community or district. Too many times trained ERTs have sat at home waiting for a call to deploy in their own community or district. We will discuss this in greater detail later, but please keep this in mind. ERTs are trained and credentialed by UMCOR, the humanitarian relief arm of the United Methodist Church. This allows us access to areas affected by disasters that we otherwise could not access. On pages 4 and 5, you will find a covenant between UMCOR and UMVIM. I ask you to read and sign this for your own benefit, to remind you of how and why we serve in this capacity.
For our purposes, a disaster is defined as any event that results in overwhelming physical, economic, and/or emotional damage to a community. It causes significant harm to people and property. Disasters disrupt normal patterns of living. Disasters affect individuals, families, neighborhoods, communities, and regions. Although there are a variety of disasters, technical, economic, civil, accidents, etc., ERTs are normally only deployed to natural disasters such as hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, floods, and fires.
You will remember that there are distinct phases to a disaster as well. They are readiness, when we plan how to respond, conduct training, and set up communications. That is what we're doing here today. Next is rescue. Emergency first responders and public officials provide emergency assistance to preserve life and property. Then there is relief. This phase immediately follows rescue and is where we try to prevent further damage. This is the time when ERTs are deployed. Recovery is next. This is where homes are rebuilt and lives are pieced back together. The recovery phase is the longest of them all and continues until normal conditions exist once again in the community. Finally, review, which occurs after each phase. A review of what went well and what could have been better is a great way to begin the readiness phase once again. While every disaster is different, a good rule of thumb is the rule of 10. The rule states that the relief phase will last 10 times longer than the rescue phase did. The recovery phase will last 10 times longer than relief phase did. So if rescue lasts 6 days, ERTs should be prepared to assist with relief for up to 60 days. Long-term recovery teams will probably be needed for at least 600 days or longer.
We classify disasters into 4 categories: low, medium, high, and catastrophic. Low might be a house fire or a small twister that hits a neighborhood. Medium, floods or larger tornadoes that affect a community. High, Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Harvey, or the statewide flooding seen in Louisiana. Catastrophic, the tsunami in Thailand in 2004, where multiple countries were affected. The important thing to remember here is that normally ERTs are not called to deploy until it is a medium or high-level event. Not all disasters require ERTs. Low-level events can and should be handled by local people without outside help.
So why do ERTs deploy? There are a number of reasons, both as individuals and as well as the church as a whole. It allows us to provide immediate assistance to those in need, especially when something happens in our own community. It allows us to help our neighbors and to provide a Christian witness. ERTs can also help to reassure survivors that the church is there for them. Many people will feel abandoned and alone, especially if it is a large-scale disaster and their normal support system is hurting as bad as they are. ERTs also help provide visibility for the United Methodist Church and for UMVIM. It is sad to think of it that way, but Christians and the church in general can use all the good press that we can get. Remember, the United Methodist Church has a reputation for being the first in and the last out. By being part of a continuum of support from the beginning with ERTs and continuing to help through long-term recovery process with VIM teams, we can speed along the recovery process for the survivors. Remember that ERTs respond as both individuals and as the church.
What do ERTs do? Remember our mission to provide a caring Christian presence in the aftermath of a disaster. This always needs to be our first order of business. No matter what else we do, this needs to be at the forefront. Please remember, though, that this is not the time to proselytize. We need to show Christian love through our actions, but we don't want any survivor to think that our help is only for Christians, or that there are strings attached to our service. The tasks that we perform are designed to prevent further damage. Remember that we aren't there to rebuild their homes, but rather to stop the bleeding, so that the survivors suffer no more loss than they already have. Some of the most common tasks are tarping roofs and other openings. We help homeowners salvage what they can. We remove debris and muck out flooded or damaged homes. We may be asked to help with donations management, or to help gather information through assessments or other means. Or maybe just be present with survivors, providing us with an opportunity to be the hands and feet of Christ.
Sometimes when we are trying to help, we may inadvertently do more damage. We need to be very careful not to let this happen. Do not jeopardize the survivor's eligibility for assistance. Once on site, our assistance starts with a conversation and getting to know the homeowners. Remember, this is about people, so it makes sense that we get to know them. Do they have insurance? Have they registered with FEMA? If not, can you help them to contact their insurance company or FEMA before you start cleaning out the property? You might suggest that they take photos before beginning work. Or maybe your team leader or team listener can walk through the property with them and help them to do this. But a word of warning. Please don't deliberately take photos of survivors or their home without their permission. And even if you have permission, please don't share them on social media or even in your church on Sunday morning. Doing so just victimizes the survivors even more. In the forms package, There's a form titled Work Order and Statement of Understanding for Access to Property. This is a great place to get their permission, and also to get in writing what you will do. Remember, the survivors are in shock, and when you say, "We are here to cut out and remove sheetrock," they may well hear, "We are here to replace the sheetrock." Put in writing what you are there to do, and leave them a copy of it. It is good to have the homeowners present if possible. There are decisions to make that they will be needed for. Remember that ERTs do not make repairs.
We are likely to be on the scene very early after the disaster. The survivors will have recently been through what may have been the worst day or week of their life. They will be thinking irrationally and may well be in shock. Remember, this is a ministry of caring. The jobs are important, but the people are more important. Here we see the 4 stages or phases that survivors will pass through. First, they must accept reality. They need to accept that this is happening to them. You might hear, "I can't believe this is happening," or "This is so unreal." This can't be real. Second, they must experience pain. In order to move on, they have to go through the pain. They will cry uncontrollably. They will shut down emotionally or stop speaking. They won't respond rationally to questions. They may not be able to make decisions. Third, they must adjust to a new situation. Eventually, they will be able to adjust and begin to accept what has happened. Finally, they will reinvest in the new. Their life will never be the same, but they will make adjustments and a new reality will form. We aren't there to analyze them, but should understand what they are experiencing so that we can respond correctly and help them to cope as best as possible. Each person is different, but since we are there fairly early on after an event, we will likely see them in the first 2 stages. We need to anticipate and react appropriately. Parenting techniques help, but don't expect survivors to act rationally early on. The best thing that we can do is understand where they are and help them in the moment.
In assisting survivors, we should work to help them regain control, and never make survivors dependent on you. We should recognize symptoms of depression, rage, self-pity, sense of loss of control are all red flags. We must be sure that we are not filling our own need for recognition or importance. Finally, when working in a post-disaster environment, flexibility is the key.
There are 7 things to remember that will help us as we are working with survivors. We are guests in their home and should act accordingly. You may see it as a disaster site, but yesterday it was someone's home. It still is someone's home. Inappropriate comments or even laughter can be troubling to someone who has just lost everything. Our Christian witness is reflected by our actions. We may be the only Bible they ever read. We need to represent Christ and His church accordingly. Confidentiality. Again, we need to be careful of photos, but also what we say and who we say it to. Unless someone is in danger or you see something that is illegal, respect the privacy and confidentiality of the survivors. No promises. Never promise something you cannot fulfill today. It is easy for us to promise that someone will be here tomorrow to finish the job, or next month to rebuild the home. But we can't be sure of either one of those things. Please don't add to their loss by promising something that you can't provide. Refer. Do your homework before you arrive and be ready to offer the homeowner information that may help them. Our personal abilities may be limited, but we can certainly be ready to refer them to others. Especially if you are working outside of your own community, take a few minutes and find the information for FEMA registration, shelters, pet rescue agencies, donation coordination sites, debris pickup coordination, etc. We are involved in a ministry of presence. How we love on these people is more important than what we physically do. Be careful with your words. On page 19, there is a list of things to say and not to say. Take time to read through these and reacquaint yourself with them. It is so easy to say the wrong thing without even knowing it.
Hopefully you remember that an early response team is comprised of 7 team functions. They are listed on the screen, and the duties of each are listed in the manual on pages 25 to 27. Please take a few moments and review the description of each function. Even if your team is comprised of less than 7 people, all of the functions should be covered. Remember that we are all busy, and therefore you need to recruit a pool of at least 30 people in order to put together a team of 7 at any given time. From that pool, you should be able to identify approximately 6 team leaders and 3 logistics team members. Also look for people with equipment or construction skills. You can refer to page 27 for a list of attributes for all team members. Remember, we are training to be a team member, not individual responder. TEAM is an acronym for Together Emergencies Are Manageable. You can never have too many possible members. If you think you do, consider sending multiple teams.
Next, we are going to discuss team and personal safety. On the personal side, make sure you are in good health. Wear proper clothing. Remain hydrated and work safely. Make sure that you are qualified to do what you are asked to do. It's okay to say, "I don't know how to do that. Can you show me?" Who is responsible for personal protective equipment, or PPE? It is recommended that each team member acquire their own equipment and not rely on something that may be on a trailer or in someone else's tool bag. Make sure it fits and is in good condition. Remember that trying to buy something like rubber boots after a flood will be difficult in an affected community. Debrief nightly. We will experience hurting people in this job, and it will affect us. It is recommended that team members meet nightly to discuss what they experienced. It isn't a time to gossip or to share personal information, but rather a time to process what the team members experienced. Immunizations. UMCOR recommends the following vaccines for team members: tetanus with a booster every 10 years, hepatitis A and B, which are normally good for life. Appendix A7 lists some additional safety issues for the team that the team leader and logistics person need to be aware of. All team members need to be qualified and comfortable with the use of any equipment before they try to use it. If in doubt, ask for help or additional training. "I'll give it a try" isn't an appropriate response. Additional training that you may be interested in is listed on page 29.
There are several protocols that are common to all ERTs. First, we differentiate between response and deployment. Response occurs near home, without a needed invitation or any outside influence. Deployments, on the other hand, occur when we are sent to other areas away from our community or district. We are normally deployed through our conference disaster response coordinator. This is often done through district coordinators or through what we refer to as cluster leaders. The use of cluster leaders is an idea that we in the Rio, Texas Conference are beginning to use to help bring together trained responders who are not necessarily part of a team or part of a congregation with a large ERT presence, but who are geographically located near to others who are. This allows us to include all responders and allows us to increase the pool of potential responders that can be called upon when the need arises. Remember when we discussed the pool of 30 volunteers to field a team of 7? Clusters will help you do that. Deployments out of our own conference always come after an invitation. We do not self-deploy, as doing such will almost always create a burden on the affected community. The invitation is made between the conference disaster response coordinators and is often done in conjunction with the jurisdictional coordinator. ERTs should always plan to be self-sufficient. This does not mean that there will be no support on the ground when we arrive, but we should be ready to fend for ourselves if the situation calls for it. We deploy for a 3-day limit. This means 3 days on the ground working, plus additional days as needed for travel. This is done for a variety of reasons. ERT work is hard and creates stress. We will be sleeping in unfamiliar places and eating things that are not normal for our bodies. And we need to leave room for others to serve. Also, we reduce the possibility of creating dependency when we leave after 3 days. Trusted con confianza is the Rio, Texas Conference safety policy for ensuring the safety of children, youth, and vulnerable adults. Formerly known as safe sanctuaries, ERTs need to know and follow the policies established by the conference, as disaster survivors definitely fall into the category of vulnerable people. The current conference policy states that at least 2 members of every ERT will be fully trained and compliant with the conference safety policy. For teams of 16 members or less, this meets the minimum requirements. We encourage everyone to complete this training, as the safety of vulnerable people certainly is in line with our mission of providing a caring Christian presence. For more information or to get trained, please go to riotexas.org/safe. Because we are trained within UMCOR guidelines, we receive our ERT credentials from UMCOR, which will help us gain access where unaffiliated volunteers may not be allowed. As such, our badges must include a current photo and are good for 3 years as limited by the background check. The background check for our badges is different from, in addition to, our Trusted con Confianza background check, but is simple to receive. At the end of this training, we will give you more information on how to complete that background check. As with most everything that we do, documentation of what we do becomes more important every year. Federal relief dollars are normally given to communities at a 75-25% split. This means that local communities must be able to provide 25% of the help in order to get the 75% of the federal funds. One way that they do that is by counting volunteer hours as part of their percentage. A dollar value is applied to every hour that is worked by volunteers. Therefore, team leaders need to make sure that they are reporting those hours to the community, and we also need to report them to our own conference. Additionally, as the conference also receives funds from UMCOR, we must be good stewards of our resources and report back to them what we are doing and how those resources are used. In the packet of documents that you were asked to download, there is a form titled ERT Daily Work Log. This form needs to be completed daily by the recorder listener or the team leader and sent back to the conference. Instructions in the addresses are listed on the form. We also ask that the work order and statement of understanding for access to property form and the personal liability release forms be turned over to the on-site conference representative or forwarded to the conference office by the team leader upon completion of a deployment. These forms need to be maintained long-term in case there is ever a question about receiving permission to do what we do. Another important consideration is team member insurance. There is information in the manual regarding insurance for the team. You should read through it, as we recommend that nobody deploys without insurance for all team members. Team leaders should discuss this with everyone going in advance to ensure that nobody is unprotected.
Let's refresh ourselves a bit about the tasks that we do as ERTs. While every deployment is different and the tasks will vary, there are a few that seem quite common. The first common task is cleaning out water-damaged homes. Our primary concern in this job is mold control. I encourage you to spend some time reviewing the procedures in Appendix A, starting on page A7. Always be mindful of safety when working around mold. Ensure that you have adequate PPE and are careful when working around others. The key to mold is moisture reduction. Mold will not grow in a dry environment. The best recommendation for controlling mold is to scrub the moldy area with a mild detergent and a scrub brush. If the entire house is gutted, you may be able to use a pressure washer, but that is not a good way to reduce moisture. The use of bleach is usually not the best idea for removing mold from walls, as it is a toxic chemical and doesn't work as well as other products. Once the visible mold is removed, the wall studs can be treated with a fungicidal product. Shockwave is a commercially available product that encapsulates mold and keeps it from spreading. It is applied with a pressurized sprayer bottle. The Rio, Texas conference can help purchase this if needed. ERTs need to let homeowners know that we are not mold remediators. We are only stopping further damage. They need to be encouraged to seek professional treatment before rebuilding if it is feasible.
Another task that we routinely help with is sorting and cleaning the contents of flooded homes. There are instructions for cleaning flooded objects on pages A8 and A9. You may need to help homeowners decide on what to keep and what to dispose of. Page A8 lists things that can and cannot be salvaged. No matter what, remember that the homeowner is the boss and the final decision is theirs. Most communities will want you to sort items being disposed of. In a perfect world, they would be sorted in the following categories: household garbage, construction debris, vegetative debris, hazardous waste, large appliances, and electronics. In all cases, keep the debris away from obstacles that will impede pickup, which will normally be done by front loaders or other heavy equipment. This graphic shows us how it should be done in a perfect world.
After cleaning or mucking out the contents of the house, it is often necessary to remove the sheetrock that got wet and is now waterlogged. Wet sheetrock can never be salvaged and must be removed as quickly as possible to stop the growth of mold. Following are the recommended steps for sheetrock removal. Start in the back of the house and move toward the front. This will help you to keep from recontaminating an area that has already been cleaned. Remove as much of the contents of the room as possible. Determine how high the water was in the house. This is usually evident by the dirty water line. Go 12 to 18 inches above the water line and make a hole. Test the sheetrock and insulation for moisture. If there is any evidence of moisture, keep going higher until everything in the wall is dry. Determine the level that you will cut the drywall. It is best to do so in 2-foot or 4-foot increments, as it is easier to replace a 2 or 4-foot wide piece of sheetrock than one 6 inches wide. Think about those who are coming behind you to make it quicker and easier to repair the home. Snap a chalk line around the perimeter at the desired height. Cut a clean, straight line with a sharp utility knife. Remove the soaked sheetrock in the largest pieces possible. Cut and remove the soaked insulation behind the sheetrock, but do not pull it down from behind the remaining sheetrock, as it will be nearly impossible to replace. Of course, there are any number of variables to consider, but this method has been proven to be quick, clean, and effective.
Tarping damaged roofs and other openings in homes is another task that ERTs need to be ready to perform. Beginning on page A15, you can read through the recommended procedures. Tarping a roof requires the use of ladders, the most dangerous tool on any work site. Please review the safety precautions listed on page A14.
There is a lot of good information located in the appendices. Please take some time and read through them to reacquaint yourself with the material. I encourage you once again to keep this manual as a reference. Read through it when you are in the preparation phase prior to deploying. Stick it in your bag as you are getting ready to go, and use it as a reference when you are confronted with a new situation. Also print a copy of the conference points of contact sheet and give someone a call if you have a question or concern.
This completes the ERT recertification course. Now you just need to finish the paperwork. In order to finalize the ERT recertification process, you will need to complete the online course evaluation and quiz. The quiz is not really a quiz in the traditional sense, but rather a review of the material that we just covered. The only question that you have to get right is the last one, and the answer is, please take note of this, the answer is 78248. Repeating, 78248. After completing the exam, you will need to go online to tinyurl.com/umcorvv and complete the background check form. This is quick and easy. It should take only about 5 minutes. The web address is also included in your download forms packet. Please remember to do this, as your badge will not be processed until your background check is complete. Also, please remember to send us a new badge photo. There are instructions for doing this in your downloaded forms packet as well. Upon completion of the background check, and after we have received your photo, we will send all of the material to UMCOR for a new badge. Then we will forward you the new badge and ERT shirt when they return. The Real Texas Conference ERT Training Coordinator will track the progress and follow up to ensure that you receive it. Thank you for your continued willingness to serve as an ERT. We encourage you to put this training to use at the next opportunity. It seems that there is never any lack of need to be the hands and feet of Christ in the aftermath of disasters. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to email the Real Texas Conference Disaster Response Coordinator or the Conference Disaster Response Training Coordinator at the email address on the screen. Thanks, and God bless your service.